Welcome back to the Age to Age podcast. I know it feels like we've been on a break, but here we are. So this podcast began with the simple idea that the people who have gone before us, they carry answers that we never thought to ask for. And when they go, those answers go with them. And so I sit with African men and women over the age of 60, give or take, and I ask them about their lives while there's still time to ask. But some of the people that I most want to ask these questions are gone, some of them long gone. And so in this series, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to pull up a chair for the dead. Now, everything you hear them say is drawn from the record, their own words where we have them, documented fact where we don't. I try not to invent any emotion, just the same questions that I ask everybody else, put to the people who history didn't give me a chance to meet. The first of them was born in Lagos in 1864. His name was Herbert Macaulay. On with the podcast. We talk about life, we talk about culture, music, their successes, their failures, their regrets, and their legacies. They put my face on the £1 note. Then they took the note away and they put me on a coin. And that's the trouble with being remembered. They shrink you to fit the currency. But here you have the man, not the monument. My full name is Olayinka Herbert Samuel Hilas Badmus Macaulay. Listen to it. Olayinka, that's Yoruba, it means wealth surrounds me. Herbert Samuel Hilas, it's English, Christian actually, the empire's names. Badmus from the Muslim world. And now all of it in one man before I had said a single word of my own. That name is the whole story. If you know how to read it, I was Lagos before Nigeria was a word that anybody used. I was born on the 14th of November, 1864, on Broad Street in Lagos. It was a Monday. My father was 38 years old when I came. Thomas Babington Macaulay, a priest. But don't picture a man in a collar. Picture a man who built something. He founded the first secondary school this country ever had, the CMS Grammar School, Lagos, in 1859. Before him, there was no such thing here. And after him, the colony took its clerks, its catechists, all the clergymen from the boys he taught. My father made the room that educated Nigeria's first educated men. And now he himself had been born in Sierra Leone, in Kissi near Freetown, to Yoruba parents who had been taken by slaves and then freed at sea by a British squadron and set down in Freetown to begin again. So my father was a rescued man's son who came home to a country his parents had been dragged out of. My mother was Abigail Crowther. And her father, my grandfather, was Samuel Ajayi Crowther. Now, perhaps the name means nothing to you now, but it should mean everything. I know the story is not about him, but as a boy in the wars, he was taken, captured, sold, and put on a slave ship bound for the Americas. And the British Navy, hunting the slavers, they caught that ship and set him free. A boy with no family and no country, put ashore in Sierra Leone. He learned to read, he took the faith, and that stolen boy became the first African bishop of the Anglican Church. He was made a bishop around about the same time that I was born. So understand what I'm telling you, that in the year that I drew my first breath, my grandfather became the first black clergyman of the church. I didn't have to be told my place in history. I was the history. It was in the house. Now, there's a hard truth about the Lagos that I was born into. It was a city arranged like a staircase. At the top, in Marina, the British. Below them, us, the Saro, we called ourselves Sierra Leone people, descendants of the freed, Christian, English-speaking, educated. Below us, the Brazilians, the returnees from across the water. And beneath all of us, ignored by everyone above, the true people of the land, the indigenous Yoruba, the real Omoeko, the real sons and daughters of Lagos. Now, I was born near the top of that staircase, Saro, bishop's grandson, educated, and I could have spent my whole life looking down on it. But instead, I spent my whole life turning around to face the people beneath me and saying, you are Lagos. Not them, you. And this is the thing about my heritage that I want you to hear. It didn't hand me the masses. It handed me every reason to abandon them. But what I did with it was a choice. My father ran his house like a garrison. He was a strict man, disciplinarian. And I was, at least they tell me, a shy boy under him. And there was music, always. I found the violin, and that never left me through everything that came later. The prison, the fights, the funerals of friends. I had the violin. I was 13 when my father died. He died on the 17th of January in 1878. On his own birthday, the smallpox took him. The same year it was taking half of Lagos. A man who spent his life building schools, dead on the morning he was born, at 52. 13. You don't even have the language for it at 13. You just become somebody else afterward. 2 or so years later, 16, I went up the Niger. My mother's people were traders and missionaries, and so I joined an uncle's steamer and went up the Great River into the country. A Lagos boy, seeing the inside of the land for the first time. I didn't know I was looking at the very thing that I would spend my life arguing was one country. I only knew it was vast, and it was ours. In 1881, I took a post as a clerk. Public Works, 17 years old, at a colonial desk. But they saw something in me, and in 1890, the government gave me a scholarship to England, to Plymouth, to train as a civil engineer. Some people think it was something to do with, a gesture of respect for my grandfather's legacy. Or maybe I deserved it. And on the 5th of December in 1893, I qualified. The first Nigerian to hold that qualification. The first of us to be a civil engineer, a surveyor, and later even an architect. England was not only the engineering. I played the violin properly there. I took my certificate from the Trinity College of Music in London, and I played chess for the West of England in a match against Ireland. I was not a narrow man. I have never trusted a narrow man. So I came home in 1893, and they made me a surveyor of Crown lands. A good post, colonial post, and for a few years I was, exactly what they had built me to be. A useful, educated African, doing the empire's measuring. The becoming my own man came in 1898 when I resigned. Truth is, I could no longer take their coin and keep my conscience in the same pocket. That's when I stopped being their man and started being my own man. Everything else, the party, the newspaper, the prison, grew from that one decision to walk away from a salary. In December of 1898, I married Caroline Pratt. She was the daughter of an African superintendent of police. But by August of 1899, Caroline was gone. 8 months. I never married again. Now that doesn't mean that I lived my life as a monk, obviously, as my children will tell. But I gave my name in marriage once and only once. Once I was my own man, I made myself a nuisance, deliberately and professionally. I wrote, when the British told us, with those grave faces, that they governed with the true interests of the natives at heart, I wrote that the true dimensions of that phrase were algebraically equal to the length, breadth, and depth of the white man's pocket. You can take the engineer out of the survey office, but he will still measure you. I fought the water rate in 1915. Why should Lagos pay a tax for water when it never asked them to pipe? I fought their land laws, the ones that would quietly have stripped our people of the ground under their feet. I took the case of our chiefs all the way to the Privy Council in London, and I won. The highest court in the empire forced to tell the colonial government it was wrong. And I defended the Eleko, the king of Lagos, same one that they had humiliated and exiled. I went to London for him. I embarrassed them in their own newspapers. Yeah, they put me in prison for it. Twice. Once over the Eleko affair, when my paper printed that they meant to blow up his returning carriage with gunpowder. 6 months, hard labor. Now, the thing about regret, and about the things they held against me, I won't pretend to be a saint. I was called ultra-radical, virulently anti-white. Awolowo said of me, when Lugard died, Lugard, who called me duplicitous, who was my great enemy for 30 years. They said I opened a bottle of champagne. I mean, I'm not going to confirm or deny that. And then there was the conviction very early on. They said I had defrauded over a will and a loan. I have always said the money was explained. They will read in public at my own request. But I carried ex-convict for the rest of my life because of that. A man who never frightened the powerful was never worth much to the powerless. What am I proud of? Well, in 1923, I founded the Nigerian National Democratic Party, the first political party this country ever had. And our motto was simple: Salus Populi Suprema Lex. The welfare of the people is the highest law. It called for compulsory education for every Nigerian child, and my party won every open seat in Lagos, election after election, for 15 years. There's a burning question here, and that's, how do we bridge the gap between generations and cultures? The truth is, well, I'll give you, not a theory, I'll give you what I did at the end when it cost me something. For most of my life, I was a Lagos man. Lagos was my battlefield, and if I'm honest, my horizon. And in 1938, the young men beat me, the Nigerian youth movement. Younger, sharper, tired of the old guard, took the Lagos Council from my party. I was 74. I could have called them ingrates and died bitter in Lagos. Many men do exactly that. The old cannot forgive the young for arriving. Instead, I looked at a young man named Nnamdi Azikiwe, an Igbo man, a generation and more below me, with his own newspaper and his own fire, and I decided the future was his kind, not mine. In 1944, I joined him. We built the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, a party meant to hold all of us, every region, every tongue. My own men did not want the merger. I told them I would resign before I let them refuse it. That is the bridge. It is not built with speeches. It is built when an old man hands the flag to a younger man of a different people and steps back and lets him carry it further than he himself will ever walk. I was 80 years old, and I gave the future to a young stranger. That is the only way any of it survives. And at 80, what did I feel like? I'll tell you honestly, it felt like being right too slowly. I said things in 1915 that they called sedition, and by 1945, half the country was saying them back to me as common sense. To grow old in a cause is to watch the world catch up to you one funeral at a time. If there's anything that I miss, the violin, of course, when my hands began to fail me, all the ones who went before, and the friends who started the fight with me and did not live to see it turn. I definitely miss those. But don't mistake me for a sentimental man. I didn't slow down. At 80, I was still on the road. If there's something that I want people to say about me, well, obviously, they've said it now at this point. But in 1946, they told me not to travel, that my health was failing. There was a new constitution to fight, Richard's constitution, that carved us into regions and called it progress, and a tour to raise the money to fight it in London. Well, I went anyway, north to Kano, and it was in Kano that my body finally refused me, an attack of rheumatism, and they carried me back to Lagos. Eventually, I died on the 7th of May, 1946. I was 81 years old. You will find out that when they buried me, every market in Lagos closed. That more than 100,000 people came into the streets. That they staged an Ayo festival to walk me home. I don't know what I would have wanted them to say of me, but I wasn't a saint. I have already told you that I wasn't a saint. Not even that I was right, although I was more often than they liked, but only this, that I didn't look away. That born near the top of the staircase, I turned around, and that is enough. By now, you probably even know my last words, because it was written down, and it was, after you have mourned me for a week, continue with the struggle. If I could offer one piece of advice to you, or I guess everybody who's listening, get educated. Truly, properly educated, not just certified. Because they cannot take from a people that know their own mind what they can take from a people that do not. And when you find the powerful comfortable, make them uncomfortable. Politely, lawfully, relentlessly, and that is the whole of it. So, just like I said, mourn me for a week, then continue. Thank you for having me. So that was Herbert Macaulay, or as close to him as the record would let me show. He died in 1946, believing that the struggle will outlive him. And he was right, but there's something he could never have known. Herbert had a daughter, Sarah. Sarah had a son, Babatunde. Babatunde had a daughter, Dr. Ameyo Stella Adadivo. In 2014, when a man carried the Ebola virus into Lagos, it was she who recognized it, and it was she who refused to let him leave the hospital. And it cost her her own life to hold that line, and in doing so, she helped stop the outbreak from spreading across the country. The great-granddaughter of the man who fought for Nigeria, given her life to protect it, 70 years on. And that's why I think this is really important to do. When I lost my dad, I really felt like there was a disconnect between one age and another. There were certain things that I could no longer find out from my dad that I would have loved to know, just from his unique experience. And I have made it a mission through this podcast, and even in a little way, just to build that bridge back, brick by brick, with the living while I still can, and with the people who have passed on, who clearly still have a lot to say. Thank you for taking the time to listen. And I really hope that you join this journey, and together we can both build this bridge together. Find a way to subscribe, to join our mailing list, and look forward to the next episode. Thank you so much. My name is Mide.